Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies. Fantastic to be with you today. Please help me welcome Her Excellency Željka Cvijanović, the Chairwoman of the Presidency, Bosnia and Herzegovina. What an honor to have you with us today.
Thank you, likewise. It's such a great pleasure to be here, and thank you for the opportunity.
And welcome to Dubai.
Yeah, and I would like to thank our host for really, being so nice to all of us, and I think that I can speak on behalf of everyone who visits Dubai.
Absolutely, and fantastic to see so many people here for this important conversation. I think when we think of Bosnia and Herzegovina, many people would correlate it with a complex political system, complex economic system, and I think it's important for us to kind of go through this. Your system was established through the Dayton Peace Agreement, which was signed in 1995 after the war, with the tripartite presidency, Bosniaks, Croats, and Serbs, that's rotated over an 8-month period. You're now in that position, and you represent Republika of Srpska. I wonder if you could explain the structure, the political and economic structure, because for investors in the room here, they're wondering, when they come to Bosnia and Herzegovina, do they look at you as two separate entities, and will they get policy continuity?
Yeah, but I know that it looks complicated,
Yeah.
but political and constitutional structure of Bosnia and Herzegovina was established through Dayton Agreement because we have Constitution of Bosnia and Herzegovina, which is Annex 4 of the Dayton Agreement, which means that everything is quite clear. Once you read this Constitution, you understand actually who we are, how we operate, what constitutional responsibilities are, and actually how this power is shared among different sides within Bosnia and Herzegovina. So you mentioned 3-member presidency. That's very much true. And we have this rotation system based on 8 months, which means that the person who chairs the presidency at that moment is just first among others who are equal. It doesn't mean that you can present Bosnia alone. Still, you have to have opinion of the other two. And it might look complicated, but it is not. Once you understand actually what your task is, and once you get into routine, it's not that complicated. But speaking of Bosnia as a whole, it is composed of 2 entities. This is Republic of Srpska, one entity, and Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, which is the other entity. And Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina is further decentralized into 10 cantons. And that's why it looks so complicated when you look from outside, but basically it's not complicated, because then again we have Constitution, and it says clearly actually what our responsibilities are, what we need to do in terms of political decisions, what we need to do in terms of foreign policy, what we need to do in terms of economic things, And speaking about political system, yes, it requires a lot of agreements, it requires a lot of dialogue, a lot of efforts to reconcile your views, and it might kind of, delay some decisions, but still, once you reach these decisions, this is ownership of all who live in Bosnia.
Absolutely.
But when it comes to economic sphere, then we need to understand actually that the most important parts of Bosnia are these 2 entities, because when we speak about constitutional responsibilities, you will see, for instance, that economy, infrastructure, energy sector, education, pension system, healthcare, all these vital areas, vital for the citizens, are actually placed as responsibilities at the entity level. But still, we speak about one common economic space, which is Bosnia and Herzegovina, although we have 2 entities, and these 2 entities are in charge of, business operations, the establishment of companies, or infrastructure, and all these issues that I have mentioned.
Do you see eye to eye on most issues? Because you've got 8 months. You've got to try and get as much done as possible. Do you do a massive handover? How does that actually play out?
It's not so complicated, because, when you say 8 months, it means that then one person needs to do everything within 8 months, but that's not true. We still act as collective body, as collective presidency. There is one person which is kind of, number one at that moment, but it doesn't mean that that person can decide alone. This means that when it comes to defense, for instance, and the presidency is in charge of defense, that it has to be full consensus of all 3 members in order to pass any decision. When it comes to foreign policy, for instance, one person can be outvoted by the other 2 members of the presidency, but then you have procedure how you can kind of annul such a decision which you proclaim to be detrimental to your vital national interest, or things like that, So it is kind of, it looks complicated, but as I said, once you are in, you are on board, no problem.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that's what investors look for, right? They want to know the structure, how easy it is to do business and so forth. One thing I've also come across is this high representative, which has significant powers, and essentially the Europeans have put into place a high representative that oversees the Dayton Peace Accord and so forth. Some have said that this person yields way too much power, that you do have someone overlooking your affairs. Do you think that is outdated? Do you want to see another structure? Because it's been 30 years now.
Yeah.
Are you ready for reform?
I'm among those who claim actually that that person has too much power. And these powers are not based in Dayton Agreement, like, you know. So my approach to, our country and the way how we should operate, and whether it is politics or economy or whatever the area, security, my approach is actually that we should nourish and nurture our internal dialogue, that it is us, domestic people, domestic institutions, those who are elected in elections, in fair, free, democratic elections, that we need to make the decisions. And it is exactly the way how Dayton Agreement envisaged this position of High Representative, because Dayton Agreement says clearly in its Annex 10 of Dayton Agreement, like, you know, that High Representative is someone who is coordinator of domestic efforts, someone who is facilitator of the efforts of the sides in order to reach some agreement, you know. But it doesn't say that that person can impose laws, that that person can change entity constitution. It doesn't say that that person can remove officials who are elected in elections from their positions. But all these things, you know, have been done by many former high representatives within these 30 years period, like, you know. And it's something I very much oppose to. I mean, there are some colleagues, like, you know, who live in Bosnia, who are politicians, who favor that, who think that it's okay that you have one person kind of, you know, who is a foreigner, who is not someone from your country, who doesn't get these powers, you know, from Dayton Agreement, but who just, you know, got these powers through some political conference that was kind of organized several years after Dayton Agreement was signed, and who just got these powers. So to me, it's logical that once, if we want to have country which is healthy country, and I believe that everybody wants to have healthy country, it means that it is domestic powers, domestic political leaders, domestic institutions that need to take decisions, you know, and you cannot live like now, it is 2025, having one foreigner who is kind of, you know, like a colonial power or something like that, you know, who will just do things instead of your institutions. I very much disagree with that. I have colleagues, like in the other entity, who very much support that, you know. But it's okay, that's Bosnia, that's any other country. You have agreements and disagreements.
So you believe
what matters is the way how you resolve disagreements.
Exactly.
It's not about, like, you know, fairy tale, like, you know, that you're not going to have them.
Absolutely. EU membership. It's something that Bosnia and Herzegovina has been on the path of and really
Yes.
pushing for that in terms of structural reforms and all sorts of things. Is Republika Srpska wanting to get into the EU? And then the other question is about NATO membership. You've been a partner of NATO for 20 years. We know Russia has been talking about not wanting to see an expansion of NATO countries. We see what's happening in Ukraine and so forth, and just the dialogue that's happening right now. Where do you stand at this point, and at a time of changing geopolitical
but first, number one, like, you know, Russia is not bordering Bosnia and Herzegovina, so it has nothing to do with this, like, you know, what we're discussing here. When it comes to the EU, there is a full support from everyone in Bosnia and Herzegovina that we should move towards the EU. It has lasted for too long, and it is a kind of problem for us. I wish, actually, this process was accelerated, and it was kind of, you know, it's more speedy. You know why? Because it is quite logical because of our geographical position. And it's quite logical that people support this idea.
But what's holding you back?
But, you know, it's too many reforms and requirements and disagreements within the country how we could tackle or should tackle all these reforms. But still, I think that it is something which is manageable. It's not something which is kind of, you know. But there is another issue. It's not only about us. It is also about the EU. We need to understand that the EU is a complex structure, much more complex than Bosnia and Herzegovina. And it takes a lot of efforts for them in order to prepare for new member states, you know. And you saw that actually, I mean, you can see that countries have waited for, I don't know, 20, 30 years or something like that, 15 years in order to reach membership status. So it is kind of a lengthy process, and we understand that. It looks more complicated when it comes to the Balkan countries because sometimes we do not know what the EU wants from us, to be honest. Like, you know, we understand that we used to live in one country before, that there was a collapse of that country, it's former Yugoslavia, and then sometimes you have different approaches, different, I don't know, benchmarks or things like that, which are put in front of the countries as the requirements, So it is something which is tiresome, I can tell you. But still, there is political will, and no doubt about that. There is full agreement within Bosnia and Herzegovina that all of us want to join the EU. For instance, I live in Banja Luka, that's capital of Republika Srpska, one of the two entities. I mean, the border, the EU border is 30, 40 kilometers from where I live. It's quite logical for our business people, for our students, for our ordinary citizens, for tourists, that they want to be part of this, bigger compound, which the EU is actually. So, but speaking about the NATO, there is a full agreement that we all should cooperate, and we have very good partnership, I can tell you, with the NATO. At certain points of time, in the past, everybody agreed that it should be full membership. Now there is this disagreement, For instance, most people in Federation, they believe that we should have full membership. In Republika Srpska, most people think that we should kind of nurture and maintain this very good partnership, and it should kind of be advanced in the future. But, it's not the issue at this moment, because NATO is already present there in different aspects.
It is, indeed.
But maybe something which I haven't explained, when it comes to this high representative, because I understand that this is very, specific something. What we disagree with, what I disagree with, is actually the position of someone who can, act as a kind of, superpower, as an individual, to tell you daily what to do or what mustn't be done, what needs to be done. It's kind of, it is tricky, but I think that in terms of kind of these powers, I think that they, in a way, hinder something which is so much needed in Bosnia and Herzegovina. It is domestic dialogue, I believe that, it is us who need to take care of our country. It is us who need to take care of the dialogue, which should be basis for a resolution of any issue. And I think that we are kind of progressing.
So how do you motivate and say, listen, we don't need this international oversight anymore?
But you don't need an individual. It's not a problem that you have international presence. It's not a problem that you have partnership. It's not, of course, a problem that you have good relations and you want to nourish these good relations and you have very good projects that need to be supported. That's all fine. I'm speaking about this, that no one, not even in this country or any other country on this planet, can believe that it's normal that you have someone who is non-elected foreigner who will come and change your constitution without your constitution.
You said something earlier.
And you change your laws, this is incredible. So
you said a type of colonialism.
It is colonialism, yes, yes. And it is the only, colony or semi-colony in Europe, which hinders our, I don't know, I would say normal life, normal political life, sometimes even economic life.
Sometimes even economic. I want to quickly touch on international investment opportunities with people here at the World Government
because
Summit.
Of all of this that I mentioned here, people abroad, people who are outsiders, usually see us through this political lens.
Yeah.
Because that is the story which is imposed on Bosnia and Herzegovina. There is something which needs to be dealt with politically. No, there is something which needs to be kind of promoted as business opportunities, because there are a lot of business opportunities in both entities. I will tell you just, for example, in Republika Srpska, it is possible to establish company within 3 days. It will cost you less than $100 US, not even close to that. You don't have to have starting capital in order to establish company. Sometimes it's possible to do it online, and you receive your registration within, I don't know, then again 2 or 3 days. You have electricity costs that are very low. You have labor costs, which is very low. You have kind of so many resources that are still not exploited in Bosnia and Herzegovina, in both entities. Now, when we speak about this new era, and we speak about energy sector, which is the issue for every country, you know that in Bosnia, it's only 30% of, for instance, hydro potential that has been exploited. And out of this 30%, sometimes we have surpluses so that we can sell electricity outside, So 70% is there, open for investment. Have you ever heard anyone speaking about such Bosnia? No? you would just listen stories about, oh, there are disagreements. Yes, of course, there are disagreements in every country, There is a political debate, of course, there is political debate in every country, like it's normal. There are security issues. Okay, if there are security issues, we tackle them together, and there is no country which can tackle, like, security issues alone. So we need to cooperate, and we do that, like, we cooperate. But have you ever heard, like, Bosnia as a great place, actually, to have foreign investment? No? No, because it is presented as something which is kind of strange, which is kind of, unique. No, we are not unique. Like, we are unique maybe in terms of what we can offer, but no one has exploited that.
And it looks really beautiful, by the way. It's on my list of places to go. Very quickly, because we've run out of time, I want to talk about the new sort of multipolar world.
Yeah.
Donald Trump coming in and really shaking things up, unraveling certain institutions and so forth, and really the confrontation that we're seeing on the tariff front. Everyone's kind of doing a lot of introspection and, I guess, scenario planning. Are you doing the same, and what does it mean?
What I can make out of that is actually that everybody is waiting, I would say, to see what's going to happen next. And, and it can be the beginning of some new era, definitely. I would tell you that, for instance, in Republika Srpska, where I come from, people kind of, favor this new policy, waiting to see what's going to happen next, and they're hoping that there are some irregularities that we have experienced in the previous past are going to be removed. But okay, no one knows, actually, I'm speaking about Bosnia, and I know that it holds good for many other countries, what's going to happen next. But what I know is actually that we need to have good relations with everyone, like speaking about Bosnia and others, and I think that through dialogue many things can be resolved. And I believe that actually that's going to be kind of recipe for the world of the future.
Madam President, a pleasure and honor to have you with us today. Thank you so much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.